See, people will get this confused, Nick, and they will try intermittent fasting and fail at it miserably because they see liquid calories as a go, and it's not. It's food in itself. Going past like 18 hours, I think really, you might be getting autophagy. I'm not minimizing it, but at the expense of what? Are there benefits to fasting and going without food and autophagy? Yes, probably. But at the end of the day, it really comes back to most folks, me, you, and everybody watching, coming back to keeping their calories in check.
Today we'll be discussing intermittent fasting. Let's find out what it is, what it's good for, and who should be avoiding intermittent fasting at all costs. Let's get right to it. All right, it's 2025. A lot of people are doing healthy things in the new year. They're trying new diets. They're working out. If you listen to, any of our episodes, they're doing strength training. They're doing cardio. And I think a lot of people are trying intermittent fasting. This is something that I tried a couple of years ago, and I had really great success with it. And this was actually at a time where I had an injury, so I wasn't doing any strength training. I wasn't doing any cardio. And intermittent fasting helped me pull myself back from that extra 20 pounds and get to more of my ideal weight. So let's just start. Would you mind just telling me and the audience, what is intermittent fasting?
So intermittent fasting can be done a lot of different ways, Nick, that you know about. And it's basically just abstaining from calories in general, whether it's liquid calories or food calories for X amount of period of time. Unless you live under a rock, it's like 16-8 is the real popular one.
That's the one I did.
Yeah, and then some people will even fast for 20 hours. And then I think there's even ones where you just fast for the whole day, like twice a week.
Once to twice a week.
Which sounds totally miserable to me, Nick.
But I did find that over that time period when I was doing intermittent fasting, as long as I stayed busy, I didn't mind it. But as soon as I was bored, the hunger just went through the roof. It was crazy. I mean, I almost couldn't do it if I didn't have anything to do. I had to occupy my time. And I think that goes for all boredom. I mean, a lot of people just eat when they're bored, right?
Yeah, I'm so A-type and I'm so scheduled because I'm an asshole that way. I never dealt with the boredom/hunger thing because I'm so regimented in I got to eat this at this time and this time. I'm not somebody who typically gets bored, but if I did get bored, I wouldn't eat because I'm so scheduled and I'm like uptight when it comes to that. But I know that a lot of people have told me that they eat when they're bored and they don't have much to do. So.
Now, one of the things about intermittent fasting that I found so much easier than doing a traditional diet was that I didn't particularly change what I was eating. So I was eating all of the same stuff, and I wasn't eating terribly, but it wasn't the healthiest diet in the world. But instead of changing what I eat, I was just changing when I eat. And so I would eat from noon till 8 p.m.
Okay.
And that seemed to work really well for my lifestyle. Sometimes I would do 11 to 7, but kind of in that range. Okay. And then I didn't have to change the recipes that I had. I didn't have to figure out a whole new routine at the supermarket. All I had to do was just eat during that time. Now, the one thing that I will say is it doesn't work if you eat 3 meals worth of food in the period that you should be eating 2 meals. You do have to be cutting back on those calories a little bit, or I did anyway when I was doing it. But that was where I had the most success in that kind of a range between 11 and 7 or 12 to 8. So okay. That worked really well for me.
Yeah, so I worked construction when I first got out of high school, and there was these trucks. They were called Elliott trucks, and they had a big bucket on them. And they were really a pain in the ass to drive, Nick, because when you pushed on the gas, there was a block on the bottom of the gas that would only let you go to 45 miles per hour. And the block on the bottom was called the governor. And it would govern how fast you drove. And that's basically what intermittent fasting is doing. It's a governor. It's saying, hey, Nick, Joe, Jill, Jane can't eat between these hours and these hours. And just because of that governor of time, you're going to get results from it. Doesn't mean that it's for everybody. And we're going to talk about who this is not for and some of the bad effects from intermittent fasting once somebody gets to a certain body fat or activity. But that's really one of the huge benefits because it's giving you parameters. You can't eat from this time to this time. And by default, there's only so many calories someone can stuff in themselves without feeling like total trash.
So you are restricting your caloric intake by doing that. Is it doing anything for fat burning?
It is. Insulin is a hormone that's overproduced by predominantly carbohydrates, but we do get insulin responses from some proteins, not too much from fat. And when you go for a long periods of time where you have no calories, see, people will get this confused, Nick, and they will try intermittent fasting and fail at it miserably because they see liquid calories as a go, and it's not. It's food in itself. When you abstain from calories, your insulin levels will be will recede down because your body, your pancreas doesn't have to produce any insulin because there's no food coming in. And when you have low insulin levels, your body can combust body fat much easier as an energy source. So it's the tamp down insulin is where the magic is.
Now, you brought up something good there. So people need to know that if they are going to try intermittent fasting, and of course, talk to your doctor before you make any dietary changes, but if you are going to try intermittent fasting, in that period of fasting, you can have black coffee, but you can't have milk or sugar in that coffee. You can have some teas, but you got to figure out which ones. You can maybe even have a little bit of lemon water, right?
Yeah.
Maybe regular water is fine, but that's it.
Yeah, so it's going to be any kind of tea, black tea, green tea, black coffee. And these drinks actually, Nick, the caffeine can actually quell hunger as well.
Mm-hmm.
So water, the jury's out on artificial sweeteners because actually like Diet Cokes and stuff, a lot of people will start banging those down. And those artificial sweeteners can be insulinogenic in themselves. And this can cause a problem because now insulin pushes blood sugar back down. But if you're pushing blood sugar down and you have no sugar coming in, but you can get hypoglycemic. So if you push down blood sugar and you have no food coming in, you could have somebody that can literally pass out.
Okay.
So I would say that artificial sweeteners are off the table as well.
Right.
And it's not a healthy, it's going to cause cancer thing. It's that you actually may go too low blood sugar. So yeah, any of the teas and the coffees, some people out there, and I think, why do it at this point then? Because some people will say pure fat doesn't break a fast because pure fat, like cream, or a lot of people put butter in their coffee, which
that was a fad, but I don't think it's happening a lot anymore.
I don't think there's any cardiologist that's going to say that's a good idea, by the way, just as a side note. So
I think in general, don't do it. Don't put the fats in there. Don't put the sweeteners, the artificial sweeteners.
From food, man, why do it like that? You know, if you want to put a bloop of cream in your coffee just for a little color, it probably won't break your fast. But if you're going to commit to abstaining from food, then don't be a schmuck, okay? Black coffee, green tea, black tea, and waters. And like what you said, if somebody is super lean or they're active and they're hanging drywall for a living or digging holes, a little lemon water, lime water probably is not going to do anything at all.
Okay. Now, the intermittent fasting is also going to promote cellular repair as well when you're in that fasting part of the part of your day. You're 16, not your 8, right? So I believe it's something called autophagy. Do you know anything about that?
So I can speak on a personal trainer level about autophagy. When you go long periods of time, your body does this recycling of cells and cleans house, so to speak. But if you go too long without food, there's a lot of downsides to that, especially if somebody's exercising. And so autophagy was a big word for a while. And some of the people, I'm not here to make anybody feel wrong or make fun of anybody, but some of these autophagy people look horrible, bro. They look sick, okay? So yeah, maybe you're getting some cellular cleaning, but at the expense of what? Do you have a that doesn't work, or a vagina that is all dried out because your hormones are all screwed up because you're chasing autophagy, or you do a set of bicep curls and you're sore a week later because you're not getting overall nutrition? So I think that when we talk about health and nutrition, we have to take everything in account. I gotta tell you, man, going past like 18 hours, I think really you might be getting autophagy. I'm not minimizing it, but at the expense of what? Loss of muscle, loss of testosterone or sex hormones for a woman. Maybe they're losing their hair, they're losing their period. And going long periods of time, Nick, without food increases cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. And this is a hormone we definitely do not want high amounts of.
Is fasting more effective for weight loss than a traditional caloric restriction type diet that you would have?
In some people, yes. At the end of the day, really what makes somebody lose body fat or lose weight or be healthy is not exceeding calories to their expenditure on in a 24-hour cycle. Now, if somebody does fasting, there's a lot of benefits to it. It can free somebody's time up. You know, if I take somebody and say, you got to eat 6 meals a day, they're like, I can't do that.
It's a lot of work.
I'm a brain surgeon or a criminal attorney. Like, what am I going to say? Sorry, Your Honor. I know we're trying to like see if this person murdered 5 people, but Nick and Mike says I got to eat 6 times a day. I got to stop for my protein drink, bro. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So in freeing people's time up, people that have kids and or businesses, this is really beneficial where they say, okay, I only have to eat lunch and dinner. So there's a benefit, right? There is the suppression of insulin. Some people have very high what's called basal insulin levels. This is very, very bad for overall health, fat burning, and longevity. So when you go long periods of time without calories, whether it's the drink that we spoke about or the food, this does quell insulin levels. Very, very important. It also gives people structure. It gives them that governor of saying, hey, Nick, Mike, you can't eat between 12 and 6, and it gives people structure.
Well, it really helped me with my late night eating, because as soon as I said to myself, I'm not eating after 8 o'clock, all that late night snacking went away. That's probably why I lost the weight, because I wasn't having ice cream at night, or chips, or something else stupid that I shouldn't be eating.
Are there benefits to fasting and going without food and the autophagy? Yes, probably. But at the end of the day, it really comes back to most folks, me, you, and everybody watching, coming back to keeping their calories in check. But, you know, let me just say this, Nick. Let's talk about the cons of fasting, okay? Now, you talked about this, Nick, that you said, hey, Mike, I'm 20 pounds overweight. I don't like it. I'm going to try intermittent fasting. And it's clear to see that you were victorious. Now, here's where that script flips, okay? If somebody is lean, because a lot of our watchers or viewers are not going to be all obese and never exercise. When you have a low amount of body fat or a reasonable bit of a body fat, and you're active, and you're training, and you're doing strength training, and you're doing cardio and sprints and all that, you really kind of don't have much money in the bank, so to speak. Body fat is stored energy, okay? And if you don't have a lot of money in the bank, right, Nick, you're very reliant on that next paycheck. Now, if somebody is where they're active and lean and they're hyper and they need to think a lot and they don't have food coming in, they really can start to feel, what's the term, hangry. I mean, some people can literally pass out, okay? They can lower their hormones. They can slow down their thyroid. Maybe women start to see maybe their hair starts to end up in the sink when they're washing their hair. Men's testosterone can be lowered, muscle recovery. What good is it, Nick, is it if I say, let's say you're training with me and you're an 11 o'clock client and in your intermittent fasting, you're not supposed to eat until 1, and now you're paying me to be a trainer, and I'm saying, oh, Nick, I told you to intermittent fast, and now you come in and your fucking workouts are horrible because you're starving to death. Because you're in a stress state where if I said, all right, Nick, intermittent fasting, it worked for you then, that's not who you are anymore. I want you to have a small meal at about 9:30, then come in for your 11 o'clock. And now you can crank it, bro. Like, which one's better? But there's so people that are so tied to the dogmatic way of this is what worked, this is the only way. Now Nick is coming in, he's getting dog shit workouts because he's starving to death. And now your cortisol is already raised, which is a stress hormone from not eating. Now I'm training you, I'm raising cortisol, and now you're just wound up, and you're like, the term is called tired and wired. And a lot of people, they have problems falling asleep at night when they intermittent fast. Or here's another thing. I tried intermittent fasting way before it was popularized or popular. I need a lot of calories, Nick. So I'm like most people, I want to have my food at night with my family. Do you know what I did? I tried to have sex and I couldn't do it because I had 3,000 calories in my stomach. You gotta fill the tank of calories up at some point, you know? So now here I am training people, and I'm doing, and I'm going, and now I'm eating this huge meal, which actually felt really good when I was doing it. I was like, I'm a king in a feast. But then I was like, oh, I had acid reflux. I felt like I was gonna pass gas when I was having sex. And now for all for autophagy,
not worth it.
You know what? Bleep this out. Autophagy. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So you got to really know. I'm somebody, I do better, my personality better, my cognition's better, my movement's better, my training's better when I eat throughout the day. So it really is who you are, where you are at your life. When you're fat, sick, and diseased, intermittent fasting may be the perfect program for you, especially if you have high blood sugars and high insulin levels, and you can test this on blood. But once you get lean and mean like Nitro Nick, you don't need to fast anymore.
Right. Well, this was something that I was doing when I wasn't able to work out, right? So this was one way that I was able to attack weight loss when I wasn't physically up to lifting weights and doing any kind of cardio or anything like that. And it was effective. It really was effective at that point. But now that I'm able to do some strength training and do some cardio, and I'm still active, I'm doing some skateboarding, I'm not doing it really at all anymore. Maybe by mistake every once in a while, but it's not something that I'm looking into. Now, let me ask you this. If people are working out in the morning, but also doing intermittent fasting, and they're seeing, like you just said, that they just don't have the energy levels, should they be tweaking their intermittent fasting so that they can have some food before a workout? Is it better to push the workout later in the day? Like, how do people attack that, or is it just on an individual basis?
Whatever training and nutrition gets you from here to here is not what usually keeps you there, okay? So if you're somebody who was overweight, you intermittent fast and it worked great, but you train midway through the day or whatever, and now you're feeling like your training's going down and your weights are going down and you have signs of stress, which can be, I think we talked about this in another video, where your extremities are cold, like your fingers and your toes and the tips of your nose when it's warm outside. This is a stress response because they're the furthest thing from your heart, and now you're not recovering. Throw a meal in and see what happens. And a lot of times when people have, and I feel bad for people, especially when they get their information from inferior sources, and a lot of these people, trainers, nutritionists, they have something to sell. They're very dogmatic. And now that person is like, no, I got to do this because it worked for the last year. And Joe Blow said, this is the way to do it. And they keep on keeping on, and they put themselves into a deep hole. So your body will give you a lot of cues. And now if you're suffering from all the things that feel like stress and lack of sleep and maybe the loss of hair or loss of a period, a menstrual cycle for a girl, or a low sex drive for a man. What good is six-pack abs if you don't want to have sex with your partner? You know what I mean? And all these different things, or you're constipated. Constipation is a big thing with intermittent fasting. You need to remove waste, you know? So you start to get all these things, then you say, okay, this worked for me then, but this is not what's working for me now.
Moving on.
Adjust your workout. Moving on is right, Nick. Move your workout. If you can't do that, then you got to shift your meals around. Okay. And maybe it's not about abandoning fasting, Nick. Maybe it's like, hey, I used to fast in the morning and I would eat at night, but I can only work at noon. So now I'm going to try breakfast and a late lunch and maybe, have a cocktail at dinner with my family. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you have to
Play around with the
Yes.
details.
It doesn't mean that you have to get rid of the 16-8. You just might have to shift when you eat those meals and how much. And maybe it's not even getting rid of 16-8. Maybe it's, hey, I fasted on 16-8 at 1850, 1,850 calories, but now I'm lean, mean, muscle, lots of energy. Listen to Nick, listen to Mike. Now I need 2,500 calories, 2,700 calories. It wasn't the intermittent fasting. It was just the lack of calories I was getting.
Right.
And I can just eat the 2 meals a day because I get the fact that eating two meals a day, if we could all get along on that, that's so much better than eating 4 or 6 times a day. It's a bit of a pain in the neck.
Making different meals and being, taking the time out to do it.
Yeah. So when we look at anything, Nick, and this is what's different about our podcast and anything else that's out there, we're open to everything working and we're open to everything not working.
Sure.
And it's about finding and negotiating because everything works at some point. I always say this, everything works, but nothing works forever.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did want to mention is obviously the quality of meals that you're having are super important. If you're taking, if you're lowering your caloric intake during the day, you want to make sure that you're having very nutritious food for the meals that you are having. Now, of course, you want to be eating nutritious food no matter what you're doing with your diet. But with intermittent fasting, I found that I was much happier when I was eating healthy meals for those 2 meals and not just garbage food throughout that time. It just made me feel better with my intermittent fasting that was going on.
No, and it's good that you said that, Nick, because there are proponents out there, and I think that it should be removed from the internet, that if you go X amount of time without eating, you could eat wherever you want. How stupid.
I don't think that's true. It wasn't true for me.
When you fast, if you don't fast, whether you eat 6 meals, 4 meals, 2 meals, 1 meal, most of the time it should be healthy and nutritious from all the food groups.
Now, does fasting affect your metabolism?
So there's studies that show that fasting can actually increase metabolism. That one's a little mind-bending for me. I don't know how that works, but I'm not going to say that it doesn't. I find that when I fast, because I'm hyper, shocking, and I train pretty hard and we're doing stuff and I'm working, I actually find that my metabolism slows down. Okay. My muscles don't look as good. I tend to get maybe a little constipated. I do get those cold extremities. Mm-hmm. So from Mike Lynch, I feel that I get a suppression in metabolism. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that there's not people out there that do get an uptick in the metabolism, but I think if you're getting an uptick from metabolism for intermittent fasting, I think it's small.
Okay.
But for somebody who's lean and active and muscular, whether it's a woman or a man, I think that it could actually really suppress thyroid function, which can make your metabolism slow down because your body's sensing it as a starvation.
Now, what about muscle loss? Can it actually lead, instead of losing fat, can you lose muscle?
I think yes. Muscle is dependent on amino acids, and amino acids, unfortunately, we don't store amino acids. We get them from protein. We get 9 essential amino acids that we need to get from nutrition. And when we eat nutrition, our amino acid levels go up and then they come back down. And if we go for long enough, our body will start to catabolize our own muscle. So I think that the muscle loss, especially again, for somebody that's got a reasonable amount of body fat or lower body fat, I think the chances of muscle loss are great with people that go too far without food.
Now, to me, and again, because I did this when I wasn't able to work out, it makes me think that people who have a lot of weight to lose and who aren't physically in a position where they can start doing any kind of serious weight training yet or any kind of serious exercise, this again can be a good way to kind of kickstart your new health routine, right? So let's just say you had 100, 200 pounds to lose. If you did intermittent fasting for a few months and lost a couple pounds, and then you were able to walk around a little easier, and now you can do some cardio, and now you can do a couple more things, would you recommend intermittent fasting for people who have a lot of weight to lose, but aren't in a place where they can be too active yet, as a way to kind of kickstart that journey?
That, in my mind, is the perfect person, the perfect candidate for intermittent fasting. Somebody who has high blood sugars, they can't move around a lot, they got tons of stored body fat. They're not at such a disadvantage from not having calories come in on a regular basis. While they're in that disease state, intermittent fasting is a great tool, especially if they have high insulin levels, like I said, in blood sugar. These can be measured for, provided they don't go hog wild at nighttime.
Well, a couple things that people want to think about if they are going to try this: you got to stay hydrated. So you do have to be drinking a lot of water.
Yeah.
You should be planning your meals and just listen to your body, right?
Yeah.
If you're starting off and doing something like this and you're getting really negative results, something is wrong.
Yeah.
You're not doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
So stay hydrated, plan those meals, and listen to your body when you're changing something up like this, and see how you feel and see what's happening. Now, last question, and I want to get to the end here, but when should people start to see some results? If you are the person who intermittent fasting is good for, should you expect to see 1 pound drop in week 1? Is there nothing going to happen in week 1? What are we looking at there?
Oh, Nick, if somebody is really far gone in a bad way and they intermittent fast, I mean, man, if they intermittent fast and their insulin levels, the baseline insulin levels are high and they come down, they can get what's called diuresis, not diarrhea, diuresis, and they can lose 15 pounds in a week or two.
Wow.
This is not unhealthy, provided they're hydrating themselves. Once that wave crashes, then, a pound, 2 pounds a week and stuff like that. But if somebody,
but that first week or two,
if somebody's gone to hell with themselves in the holidays or whatever, they can really see a flushing of this edema, which is extremely healthy. The only thing they have to be mindful of is to stay adequately hydrated, because as you're getting diuresis, which is, they might be in the toilet a lot with peeing, urination,
Sure.
They can get a low electrolyte, and they might feel like if they get up at work or they move quickly, they might feel a little wonky.
Okay.
So maybe a little electrolytes or a little extra salt on their food.
That's all I got. Do you have anything else to add to this intermittent fasting chat before we wrap it up?
I think that intermittent fasting is not a diet, because everybody thinks it's a diet, and it's an eating style, Nick. And the great thing about intermittent fasting, it's something like that you had mentioned. You did it most of the time. You don't have to do it every day. It's something that you can use from time to time. Maybe the holidays just passed, people went buck wild. They could do it for a week or two. And it's not, the great thing about it is it's not a diet. You can do it with a vegan diet, with a paleo diet, with a carnivore diet, a keto diet, any diet. It's just an eating pattern and a governor, making sure that you stay within guidelines. But someone needs to check with their doctor, and they need to look for the bad things that can come along with intermittent fasting. I would say this, let's end on a positive note. If somebody is getting negative responses from intermittent fasting, they're probably more than likely, Nick, becoming very healthy.
Oh.
Just know that it's a tool that may have gotten you there, but it may not keep you there. And a lot of times people hang on to things that got them places, but it's not a good maintenance
And people also need
strategy.
to remember that just because it worked for me or someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for them. So there are other things. This is not the only tool to get you to your ideal weight.
Right.
So it's something you can try, but there's many other things you can try. So if this doesn't work for you, just keep looking.
Yeah,
Just
and it's
keep
something
looking.
you could always go back to, but look for the signs of slow down metabolic health, and you could always go back to eating multiple meals a day. So if we missed anything, right?
Yeah.
Ask us questions, tell us about your intermittent fasting experiences, and anything that we didn't think about. If they can leave it in the comments, and if we have the answers, we'll give it to them.
Yep. Yeah, leave us a comment, give us a like, let your friends know about the podcast. That's how these things gain in popularity. The more people who watch, the better guests we can get, and the more interesting topics we'll do. So keep us in the loop. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you think about intermittent fasting, or really whatever. We want to hear all about it. Thank you so much for listening and joining us today for our intermittent fasting talk, and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.
Please like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any videos in the future.